Spring is the time when lots of creatures wake up from their winter hibernation or arrive from overseas.
And as the ground starts to heat up, there's something else that we need to look out for, and that's wildfires that are becoming an increasing problem across Surrey as our climate continues to warm.
We're meeting up on Whitmoor Common with Marli Holland from Surrey Fire and Rescue to find out more about the increasing risk of wildfires and what we can do to help stop them.
And as the sun begins to warm the ground, we're on the lookout for some of Surrey's more elusive and often much maligned residents. That's right, in this episode we're searching for reptiles and particularly snakes, and I have to say I'm very excited.
We'll be on Horsell Common with Rupert from the Horsell Common Preservation Society, along with local wildlife enthusiast Becky Thompson. We'll be accompanying them on a reptile survey across the common to see what we can find.
And that's all to come on this episode of Surrey on Common, along with what we've spotted on and around the Surrey heathlands this month. In the meantime, I'm Phil, this is Ross, and this is Surrey on Common. Okay, so spring may be the time when things start to warm up and come back to life, but it's also unfortunately the start of the wildfire season. And we're here with Marli from Surrey Fire and Rescue on Whitmoor Common, which has recently seen a wildfire. So Marli, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks so much for having me.
So tell us a bit about what happened here.
Yeah, of course. So this incident was in the middle of April, so on the 11th of April of this year. And essentially crews turned up to reports of a wildfire, and this is sort of the aftermath of it, if you like. Total damage of just over 1 hectare. And when we talk about wildfires, we have to talk about a certain criteria in order for it to be a wildfire, essentially. So with that, it comes the area of damage, it comes the total amount of resources on site needed. With wildfires, we need a large amount of resources to hit the attack straight away, to essentially try and dampen it down immediately to stop from spreading further. The crews were on site for about 5 hours for this particular incident, which is a considerable amount of time. We had 13, 14 vehicles in total at one point. So lots of resources needed. It's a well-known area, and we've got lots of members of the public around, so that's paramount, and their safety is paramount, as well as the crew's safety as well. But they did deal with it semi-quickly, despite it being 5 hours. But yeah, this is sort of what's left of it, really.
So is this kind of, I suppose, first question, are we seeing more wildfires at the moment? Are you being called out more often for these sorts of fires?
Yes, we are indeed. So I think due to climate change and due to the increase in warmer temperatures, we are having that longer periods of time of those warmer months, and from a Met Office perspective, they have said that this year will be another warm summer. And we used to say that we had a wildfire season, so we could say it was from April through to September, for example, whereas now, because of the climate change aspect, we're seeing wildfires in January right the way through to October.
Oh wow, okay.
So it will continue happening, not just within Surrey. We're so lucky within Surrey. We've got some lovely open areas, and unfortunately they are considered high risk to wildfires. But yeah, we're definitely going to see more of them, unfortunately.
I suppose, and obviously, I suppose, being in Surrey, it's quite a densely populated area as well.
Yeah.
So this isn't just about damage to vegetation, wildlife. This is also about potential sort of risk of life and stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. And this is the thing with wildfires, is with house fires and property fires, we can sort of determine quite early on whether people are in there and whether we need to consider that aspect. With wildfires, because it's an open area, it's really tricky to determine who's on site at what time, and that's why we have resources like the drone. So drones are a really key resource for wildfires. We can get those straight up in the air, we can get a really good bird's eye view. We can look for any dog walkers, whether there's cattle on site, grazing animals, that sort of thing. So yeah, it's just really good to build up a really good picture straight away as soon as we get on site. You can sort of see all the green shoots already slowly starting coming through.
So yeah, the bracken's already coming through. I suppose it's kind of the right time of year for it to come through.
Yeah, exactly that.
So you said it's about, was it about 1 hectare you said here?
Yeah, just over 1 hectare, yeah. So once we've had the incident, essentially a follow-up from me is I would attend site just to get an accurate reading, and then that goes into our national database, and it's shared with other services as well, so they can identify where we've been to, the sizes of our wildfires and that sort of thing.
And I suppose the thing about sort of the Surrey heathlands are that they are like little incendiary devices, aren't they, unfortunately, with things like the heather, the dry heather, the gorse, dry bracken. I suppose it doesn't take much for them to catch and then go, and then when they go quite quickly.
Exactly that, and especially if the wildfire incident is wind driven. So wind is a hindrance, if you like, that's what's causing it to spread so quickly and across multiple areas as well. So that's another key consideration the crews need to be aware of when they are on site. Is the weather going to change, and how is that going to impact their strategic response and things like that.
Yeah, and I suppose this doesn't feel like that large an area. You say it took 5 hours to get it under control.
Yes. Yeah.
So I suppose there's a number of questions here, aren't there? Which is one, I suppose, if you see a fire, what's the best course of action?
So I would always say and always recommend, do not hesitate to contact us if you see a wildfire, or even if you think it's just a small fire, it's not going to go anywhere. Phone it in, we'll get here quickly and we can deal with it quickly, rather than being on here for 5 hours. 5 hours, yes, it's a long time, but we've been at other wildfires for weeks on end in some cases, just because the wind's not in our favour, multiple resources are needed, and it's not just our resources, we may need over the border resources from neighbouring services, and vice versa. We would help them out if we had the capability to do that. I think from the 2022 summer that we had, not just within Surrey but across other services, I think we tended something like 983 wildfires across England and Wales because of that busy period. And from then on, Surrey alone have been, along with other services, we've been working really hard to work out what can we do to sort of mitigate these and work proactively rather than reactively in some cases. Like we have now got wildfire capability vehicles across all of our stations, unless it's a water-based station, which is amazing. We've also, back in 2023, we got wildfire personal protective equipment, so it's a lot thinner and it's a lot more comfortable for our crews. Being out here for 5 hours, they do not want to be wearing a duvet as their personal protective equipment. So having that, it gives them a little bit of comfort. The welfare of the guys and girls on the ground is paramount. So we want to make sure that they are comfortable when they are dealing with incidents like this. But yeah, since 2022, everyone's had that heightened response, and I think a lot of members of the public underestimate that it can happen here, and they assume that it can only happen in Australia, California, because of the news and things like that. But this area, it could happen here. The crews really worked really well to get this under control and for it to only be a hectare. But this is still a devastating amount of loss. I mean, the wildlife aspect, that's one thing. But yeah, people, dog walkers, they're here all the time. Are people going to want to walk around that? It's really tricky. We want people to attend the open areas, but we want them to respect it and sort of have that love for it just as much as we do.
Okay, so if you see it, call it in, regardless of whether you think somebody else might have called it in. It's always worth calling it in, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about how these fires start, because obviously that's part of it as well. Should we walk a bit further around as well? Yeah. So how do these fires start? What's the cause? Okay,
so when we talk about causes for wildfires, we are 99% of the time we're talking about some sort of human behaviour element. The other 1% being natural causes like lightning. But it's really easy to look back at the forecast to see whether we were predicted lightning and things like that. So when we talk about human and the human element of it, we are referring to things like disposable barbecues, campfires. We are talking about the litter being left, glass in particular. And we've also got, arson at the end of the day. It's all relating to humans. And normally with most incidents that we attend, we can say, okay, it was deliberate or it was an accidental fire. Whereas with wildfires, it's really tricky, because what could start off as an accidental fire, for example, someone having a disposable barbecue, people underestimate how not disposable a disposable barbecue is, and they leave it. So what could be an accidental fire is then turned into a carelessness act, which could then double up as a deliberate act. So it's really tricky to categorise whether it would be an accidental or deliberate fire, but all of our causes essentially come back to human activity. And I think it's an education piece that's needed, because people, like I said, they underestimate how quickly it can spread, and you know what the consequences are.
Okay, so barbecues,
Yeah.
litter, campfires, that's generally the cause of most of the fires.
Yes, that's
So
correct.
what about this one here? Do we know?
So we don't actually investigate fires as such,
Okay.
in terms of in the great detail, just because of the large scale of them essentially. But when we are here and when the crews are here, we are looking out for key things like, you know, the remains of barbecues and things like that. And that can really help target our prevention strategies and what we want to be working on for the year. So we work really closely with our comms team to try and get the key messages out there. So we have got things like phoning it in as soon as you see it, you know, phoning 999. It's little things like having, using the at what 3 words. A lot of people think that you have to pay for it. It's completely free. And if you give an exact location of where you are, then crews can get to you so quickly. And the other thing we're trying to tell people is, once you have phoned it in, get to a safe distance and keep away from the fire. Don't try and tackle the fire yourself. The last thing you want to be doing is stuck in the middle of something like this. So they're the key messages we want to be portraying. And yeah, and I know that all of our landowners share that same advice. So we're all working together. We all want the same thing, which is to reduce the amount of wildfires. Because yeah, it's horrible, isn't it? This is 3 weeks, and it could take, you know, years to regrow as to where it was. And it's sad.
And I suppose, like you said, that sort of the landowners are looking at ways they can sort of mitigate and maybe stop fires when they do start with fire breaks and fuel breaks as well.
Yeah.
Can you explain a little bit about how that works?
Yeah, of course. So as part of my role, I work really closely with all the landowners across Surrey, and other stakeholders as well, to essentially determine how can we make their sites more fire resilient, whilst balancing the needs of the land and what they require the land for. So I don't want to be saying, right, put a fire break in here to here, because that would eliminate all of the lovely wildlife that they're trying to, you know, preserve and protect. So it's finding that need, and it's finding the balance essentially. But at the same time, we can do lots of things in terms of, okay, we can't put a fire break in here to here, but let's sort out our access. Let's make sure our crews know where we can get really good access. Let's know what water sources are on site, you know, the contact details. Little things like that can really help our response. And it can really allow that smooth response as well. And at the end of the day, the landowners know the sites better than anybody else. So they may know little things that we would need to know that could help us. It's really, really hard sometimes, because it all comes down to the funding element as well, and the manpower needed. You know, it's great putting a fire break in, but it needs to be maintained throughout the year, and it needs to be maintained, you know, going forward as well. And then you've got something like ground nesting bird season, which of course I'm sure you're aware of, and I've learnt so much about that since starting my role, you know, where the works can't physically happen at certain times of the year. So it's really tricky from an outsider looking in to say, well, why haven't you cut fire breaks? But I'm sure there are some very good reasons as to why they haven't, and I know that the landowners that I do engage with, they don't want wildfires to happen, and they're doing everything they can to ensure a smooth response and to work with us to help us out as well.
Well, like you say, it's a delicate balance, I suppose, isn't it? It's sort of protecting what's here already and not disturbing that. But at the same time, obviously, one fire could wipe out the whole of like a common, I suppose.
And I think that's the way that some land managers need to look at it, to say, okay, well, if you put a break in the middle here, should anything happen, then there's a really good chance that it's going to stop at that break, because essentially by putting in a break, you reduce the amount of fuel. So if the fire doesn't have any fuel, the fire will stop, or it will change its behaviour, and it will, you know, suppress itself essentially. We can also use fire breaks as a really good suppression tactic for our crews. So if it's a vehicle width, for example, then it gives us another access route in. If there are any properties nearby, then again we can use this and use the break as an avenue essentially where we can protect that property. So we can use them in a couple of different ways, but it's identifying where they are as well, and then identifying that and showing the crews. So I encourage them to attend familiarisation visits so they can get familiar with things like the keys and the codes, you know, anything we can get to site really quickly for. We produce maps so we can see and highlight where the access points are, maybe where the hazards are. So for Whitmoor, we've got a couple of pylons and overhead cables that we need to be aware of. You know, making sure that we're contacting the right people when we are on site if they are affected. Yeah, essentially all information gathering in a proactive way to hopefully either not come to site, or if we do have to come to site, then we know how to tackle those wildfires. Yeah.
Can we talk about tech? Because I know sort of that's actually playing a part now. You were talking about drones earlier, but there's also other tech which is being deployed at certain commons in Surrey, is that right?
Yes, so is this in relation to Embry?
Yes.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, so I think Embry is a really exciting project that it's sort of, I think it's quite new, isn't it? I think some organisations are getting familiar with it, and I know a couple of the land managers in Surrey are trialling this new project, and it is a really exciting time because it just makes perfect sense, doesn't it? You know, let's put some sort of CCTV on trees. And I've always joked about it since I started my role, you know, that's what we need. You know, we don't have Ring doorbells on trees, unfortunately, for wildfires. So this could be the next best thing, which would be great. So essentially, without stealing Embry's thunder and probably ruining the idea of the technology, it is, they look like a little bit like bird boxes, and they're in the trees, and they can detect smoke or heat up to 100 metres.
Okay.
And then essentially whoever's in charge of the dashboard would get a notification, whether that's the land manager or whether that would be our control, and we can essentially receive a notification to say, look, this might be happening in the area. So with that, we're getting a really early detection.
Okay.
You know, we haven't got the element of relying on members of the public. A lot of our open areas are quite hidden away.
I was going to say quite remote as well,
yeah,
aren't
exactly.
they? Yeah.
So it could be that the fire's not spotted until it's on a larger scale. So with something like Embry, they can target and they can see it really, really quickly. We can get that instant early detection and we can get that really quick response onto site. So going forward, I think it's a great idea. And I think allowing our control to have instant data in terms of where it is, I think it is great and it is key, and it could allow us to have that, you know, the initial 5-hour response time here to, I don't know, an hour to 2 hours, because we've nipped it in the bud really quickly, and that is so important and so key. Again, it does come down to the funding and whether that is available for individual landowners, but if it is, I would definitely recommend giving it a go and then liaising with us to see how we can all work together to reduce, mitigate. You know, it's all part of the bigger picture, I think. And yeah, tech is a huge part of it now, and I wish I'd come up with it myself.
That's amazing, brilliant. Okay, so if someone sees a fire, they should call it in. Is there anything else we should be thinking? Do you have like top tips for people when sort of on the commons? And
yeah, of course. So when we are on the commons, I always try and say to people, you know, let's not take disposable barbecues. Let's take those picnics instead. Once you have finished with those picnics, take all your litter home. You know, there are bins on our open areas. You know, let's put all of our litter away. I essentially want people to use the open areas in the countryside and leave it as they found it. You know, it's such a common saying, but lots of people don't listen to that. So yes, definitely taking those picnics instead of the barbecues, eliminating that risk essentially, and we want people just to be thinking proactively, you know, okay, what am I going to do if I do see one? We're then going to phone 999 and get ourselves away to a safe distance. There are top messages that we want to be doing. Little things like disposing of cigarettes responsibly, you know, any sort of ignition is going to be key to eliminate when the vegetation is so dry. You know, despite us having rain, it may not have, depending on the soil type, it may not have even gone through. So it may just be a surface layer of water, so it may not prevent a wildfire. And also, as long as we have, you know, a couple of warmer days, it eliminates all that anyway. And, you know, even on an overcast day like today, we still have got some wind. So, you know, there's nothing stopping it essentially. And yeah, it's just to be mindful essentially. Top tips, you know, we've got, I think Surrey is the most wooded county in the UK. It is, yeah. Let's celebrate that and let's keep it, you know, a destination that people want to travel to. You know, let's all visit our open areas but respect them.
So Marli, thank you so much for being with us this morning. and for taking us on a tour of this area of Whitmoor Common that's obviously seen the fire. Really appreciate you giving up the time, but also want to say a massive thank you to you and the team for keeping us safe when fires like this occur. So thank you very much.
Oh,
We do
no problem at
appreciate
all.
it.
I'll pass on your thanks to the crews.
Thank you so much.
No worries.
Okay, with spring now in full swing, let's see what we've spotted on and around the Surrey heathlands this month. So this is a brimstone butterfly, just settled here on the ground in front of me. I imagine they're coming to the end of their spring flight period. This one is kind of, I don't know, over on one side, on the grass, just in the sun. Maybe it's warming up this morning. There's another one. Just fluttered over the top and landed quite close. And this one's just taken off now. Let's see if we can get that one. Let's see, where is it? The other one there is cleaner. Right on this one. There it is. That's by a drone fly. Maybe they're just warming up in the morning before heading off to find a mate a bit later. Let's see if I can get a bit closer. So this was just hanging off the tree as I ran beside it, and this, I believe, is a mottled umber caterpillar. Difficult to get it in focus, but you can just see it just there. Yeah, almost like inchworming its way up the branch here. Mottled umber's like a relatively brown moth. The cool thing about this fella is that when scared, it kind of looks just like a twig. There you go. See the markings down the side there. It's good to see the Belties back on Horsell Common. You can see them all hunkered down here, out on the path in front of me. I think they've only recently been brought back, but they're already starting to do what they do, which is bash through the undergrowth and poo and just generally cause a bit of messiness throughout this area. So it's always nice to have them back. It's interesting actually, you can see from their colouring that kind of like they're really sort of well suited for being in this sort of environment, because they just disappear. Even though they're there, you'd never know. There was like 6 of them, 8 of them potentially, all laying there. That mottled pattern on their backs just breaks up their silhouettes a bit. I suppose that there is a bull here somewhere. Not that there's anything to be worried about. Apparently he's pretty big, and I think he's possibly just separated from the group just over there. But obviously, give them a wide berth if you see them. But they are pretty docile. Good to have them back. So we're over on Thursday Common, and this here is a very small, very cute common lizard. It's actually the second one we've seen. The first one scampered away before we had a chance to get the video camera on it, but here we go. This is a common lizard, and it's actually very close to it's on the boardwalk here, but it's very actually close to sort of some water, and so it's all very damp around here, which is quite surprising given that they like to nest obviously in drier environments. But there you go, common lizard. So this is a grass snake that our cameraman Ross filmed crossing the riverway when he was out on a shoot. As you can see, grass snakes are actually really good at swimming and spend a lot of time around the banks of rivers, feeding on sort of frogs and various other aquatic creatures. But yeah, they can swim really, really well. We're very lucky enough this time to be joined by Rupert from the Horsell Common Preservation Society and Becky, who's a wildlife enthusiast. And this morning we're going to be doing a reptile survey with these guys on Horsell Common. And I have to say I'm super excited about it today, because Reptiles is one of the things that I'm always on the lookout for when I'm on the common. So this is quite an exciting thing for me this morning. So thank you for giving up your time this morning.
No problem.
Really
Pleasure.
appreciate it. So I suppose the first thing we should say is that reptiles are protected in this
Yes.
country, aren't they?
Yes.
So approaching them, disturbing them is a big no-no.
That's right. Yes, correct. Obviously, we'll be running a survey here, but we won't be disturbing them at all. We're just, for the purpose of the survey, we'll be observing them and that's it. But we won't actually be handling them, so that's quite important to say. Yeah.
The Horsell Common Preservation Society does have a number of refugia that are spread across the common. Now, refugia are just sort of, what would you say?
So basically, a refugia is it's a piece of, well, often people use it like a rectangle of aluminium. But the trouble with aluminium is it glints in the sun and it attracts attention from people passers-by who might therefore disturb it. And if they disturb it, then it's basically messing up the survey. So what I basically use is roofing felt, which is black, so it can't be seen. And it provides the reptiles with somewhere that they can hide underneath and basically regulate their blood temperature, increase their blood temperatures in the morning before they go out and hunting. Yeah.
Okay, we should say there's a number of these that are spread across the common. So if you do see them, please don't disturb them, please don't approach them, just leave them alone. You may be lucky enough to see one of the resident reptiles that are here anyway, without needing to actually sort of disturb them. Cool, so with that in mind, shall we get on with it?
Yes, let's
do
go.
it.
Actually, interesting, you'll see it in a minute, but each of the refugia has a label on it.
Right.
Yeah, and on that label, it has our logo and basically telling people it's a survey.
Right.
So they shouldn't disturb it.
They shouldn't disturb it at all.
Yeah, you'll see it in a sec.
Ooh,
Okay,
okay.
so there's the label.
There is a label on it.
Yeah,
Ready?
yeah.
Well, there's lots of ants,
Right, loads of ants.
loads of ants, and
Okay,
That's all really.
not much else.
no. So this is an interesting one. Because we've got lots of ants, Becky will make a note of that on the sheet.
Okay.
Yeah. And if we continue to have loads of ants under this one, we might move
Move
this
it.
refugia slightly because it kind of can put the reptiles off a bit.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Fair enough.
You
What
can
sort of
imagine.
ants are these, just out of interest?
Just black ants and also red ants too. I think there might be a mixture of. Yeah. So there you go.
Okay.
Okay, so that's the first one.
We
unfortunately.
haven't found anything under that.
No.
element, that particular one, have we? It's the next one.
Okay.
Okay. Right.
Let's keep moving.
The other thing to bear in mind as you're walking through actually is obviously watch your footing and try and move slowly in case there is an adder or something. Give it an opportunity to move out the way. Yeah, that's all.
So, okay, so we have 6 reptiles, native.
So we've got 6 native reptiles in the UK. We have 4 of those on Horsell Common.
Okay,
The 2 that we haven't got are the smooth snake and the sand lizard. The reason why we haven't got the sand lizard is literally we just don't have the habitat.
okay.
Yeah. Sand lizards require banks of exposed sand, large banks of exposed sand, ideally south facing, that they can burrow under, and we just don't have those. You'd have to artificially create that,
Okay, so
that habitat. Yeah.
I suppose apart from the sandpits, it's probably the only area that would be potentially.
Potentially, yeah. But the problem with the sand pits, of course, here is the human disturbance.
Right.
Because Horsell Common, as you know, is
Yeah, it's very busy.
big
yeah.
towns close to it,
Yeah.
so on and so forth. Yeah.
Okay, so we don't have the sand lizard, and we don't have the
Smooth snake. We don't have the smooth snake. The smooth snake is rarer than the other 5. But in addition to that, probably the reason why we don't have it on Horsell, we've got the right conditions for it, but due to habitat fragmentation over the millennia, they just happen to not be here.
Right.
And as soon as they're not here, you're faced with having to reintroduce them.
Yeah.
Yeah, which we just haven't done. We need to go this way now.
Okay.
Yeah, cross country, guys.
But let's talk about then what there is here then. So
We have the grass snake, the adder, we have the common lizard as well, and the slow worm.
Dartford warbler.
Dartford warbler, yeah, absolutely. Well spotted.
There seem to be a lot of them around this year. There's obviously, I don't know if it was a mild winter, whether They're doing quite well.
They're doing well because it's been 2 mild winters really. In fact, all 3 Annex 1 species are doing well at the moment. Yeah.
And the Annex 1 being the Dartford, the
nightjar and the woodlark. Yeah. Right, here we go. Yes, found it.
Okay, here we go. It's number 2.
So with this one, we've had slow worms under this before, haven't we? I think 1 or 2.
Okay,
Yeah.
I can see ants on the top of it already.
Yeah.
And actually you can see, yeah, it's like there's a nest off to the side there. A lot of activity.
Yeah, you can see that. Yep.
Are we ready?
Okay.
Oh wow. Okay, I'm going to take a photo of that actually. There we go.
So like you said, I suppose, you know, being a nest like that, they're not likely to
No.
stick around there.
Yeah, we need to make a note of that really. Yeah. It's just the way it goes. There's ants on the common. It's part of the ecosystem,
Yeah,
part of the
exactly, and
habitat.
an important part of the ecosystem
yeah,
as well.
absolutely.
So
Food.
yeah,
Yeah. But
shame. Never mind.
there we go.
Let's
Right.
keep going.
Next one.
Back this way.
So we should also say, I imagine these are not paths, are they, that have been cut through
Absolutely
here?
not.
Is
Instinct point.
this more sort of to give us different levels of heather,
It
more sort
is.
of edges?
Yeah. So we have an annual mowing regime that we do. So we get a contractor in with a big tractor that cuts the heather but also collects it. So you're not leaving that biomass on the common, which would otherwise increase the amount of nutrients in the soil, which would increase the amount of invasive species that would compete with the heather. So it's a cut and collect system. So we get them in, and every year, in the winter of course, outside the ground nesting bird season, and we get them to basically mow random paths.
This is the drunken mowing.
Yeah,
is that right?
this is the drunken mowing.
Yeah.
Mowing random paths through the heather. And what that does is it encourages the heather to regenerate, which is happening here.
can see it
right in
here,
front-
yeah.
which is happening here right in front of us. Because if you leave heather to become old and degenerate, it's no longer of any use to the ground nesting birds really. It needs to be young heather close to the ground, which is also great for the butterflies.
Right.
And then what we'll do is the following year, we'll come back and get them to mow in between the areas that they'd mowed the previous years. So you end up with a great variation of height and age of the heathers, which is much more beneficial for all the wildlife. So that's the reason why here we're standing on a bit that's bare, because last year, I think not last winter, but the winter before, they cut this to ground level. Right. Yeah. Okay, so what we're going to do is get back in the truck and just drive down there a little bit to the next one. And then we've got one in the sand pit actually, which is quite interesting. The first survey I did there, under that particular tin, there was 4 grass snakes.
Well, okay.
And the reason for that is proximity to food. You know, the tadpoles
Right.
in the sandpit when it's wet.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're probably feeding on that.
And I suppose actually amphibians are quite a big part of a grass snake's diet, are
Yeah, exactly. We know you're there.
they? Rupert, how often do you do the surveys?
Once a month
Okay.
from April through to September.
Okay.
Yeah.
And can I ask why? What's the purpose? Apart from obviously, it's kind of a cool thing to do.
Sure.
But there must be I suppose, a purpose.
Yeah.
Is it to do with funding? Is it to do with
It
just
is,
generally?
yeah.
Okay.
So basically Horsell Common is a site of special scientific interest. It has that conservation designation, but in addition to that, it is designated as a special protection area for the 3 Annex 1 birds that come to nest here.
Okay, so this is another point to say that we've said it before on the series, but without the birds, this isn't protected.
Yeah, basically without the birds, without those 3 birds, this wouldn't be part of the Thames Basin Heath Special Protection Area. So because it's part of this, because it has that designation, obviously people can't develop, they can't build houses on here and so on and so forth, which, basically protects it for everybody to enjoy.
Keep the birds, we keep the common.
Basically.
Good message for all of us, I think. Yeah, okay. Sorry, I interrupted you, Bigum.
And you were mentioning about, it's a site of special scientific interest as well. Now, the reason why has that designation is because the assemblage of wildlife that we have here. So that's not only the birds, but also the reptiles and the various insects and so on, and invertebrates as well. So it's very important to maintain and update an evidence base for all those species being here, which is what this survey is part of doing. So to make sure that we still have those reptiles here, because every few years, Natural England, who provide us with funding, they'll come here and they'll do a site survey with us, and they'll come round and see what the habitat is looking like, and they'll advise us if they think that there's anything that we're not doing correctly to maintain the habitat in optimum condition for that whole assemblage of wildlife. So it's quite important that we maintain and update the evidence base of what's here.
It's interesting. I think the more we do these programs, the more we're realizing the link between sort of wildlife, nature, and the funding.
Yeah,
the two have to go hand in hand. If you don't have both,
that's right.
It doesn't happen.
Absolutely, yeah, very important.
Ants.
No, ants again. Yeah.
Okay, we're changing the title of this episode to Ants on the Common. And where to find them.
Having said that, we haven't seen any reptiles under this one since we started surveying. So it's another one that hasn't come up with any goods yet. Okay, you never know.
It means when you do find something, it's very exciting, though.
Yes, I can imagine. I suppose that's the thing. You know, these are not common, are they?
No.
So, I mean, they're here.
Yeah.
I mean, would you say they're here in good numbers? Are they increasing? Are the numbers decreasing? What's happening at the moment? What do you think?
So we don't know at the moment whether the numbers are increasing or decreasing, actually. All that we know through this survey is that they are here, and the 4 ones that should be here are here. That's the important thing.
Right.
Another important thing to mention, actually, from a survey point of view, absence is just as important as presence with regards to the data. You know, it's important to know where they aren't as well as where they are, to work out from year to year what the patterns are, particularly with regards to habitat maintenance and stuff like that, because the locations of these reptiles to a certain degree inform the work that we do.
Right.
With regards to maintaining or optimizing the habitat for them. So for example, I might have mentioned that we have adders in a certain area. So we have a plan to create bare ground scrapes in that area where the adders can come out and bask in the spring and summer and that kind of stuff. So it informs our habitat maintenance.
Okay, so it's about sort of knowing where they are so you can keep that environment optimal for them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, interesting. So far this year, just slow worms?
Yeah, just slow worms this year. Last year, grass snakes, slow worms, adders. Yeah.
And you say that the sort of the times that you tend to see them are different for the different species, or
tend to be around the same kind of time, really.
Okay.
For example, the grass snakes and the adders, it tends to be sort of early mid-morning, like round about now, or sometimes late afternoon as well. So when they've been out hunting during the course of the day, that kind of thing, they might return to the refugia to regulate their blood temperature a bit again. Yeah.
Okay, and I suppose they hibernate during the winter. When do you usually find that the reptiles start waking up and you start to find them?
Around about March. March time.
Okay.
Yeah. We just sort of stop here, probably, and do it. Okay, so it's a bit of a slight walk to this one. Well, I mean, it's not far, but... So, when I first set the survey up 2 years ago, this particular refugia that we're going to now had 4 grass snakes under it. They were juvenile ones, but 4 under one. I just couldn't believe it. I thought, crikey, we're onto a winner here. But since then, we haven't seen any under it. It's really, really strange. But I remember in that year, there was a lot of water across the sandpit here. Probably what was happening is that frogs were spawning, and then the grass snakes were feeding, as a food source for them, which is probably the reason why they were there. Interesting.
Okay, and obviously it's dried out now. So,
yeah. So
do we think therefore the snakes would have dispersed at
that? Might. Yeah, that's exactly because the wildlife follow the food source, obviously, for survival.
Okay, let's talk about snakes, as this is hopefully what we're going to find here. 3 different types of snakes, native. You said the smooth snake isn't on the common.
No.
The other 2, so the grass snake and the adder. So let's talk about how to tell them apart.
Sure. Okay.
They one bigger. I know obviously they have different markings on their backs, but how would you tell them apart? Which ones to be worried about, which one not to be worried about?
So the adder is venomous, whereas the grass snake,
Not poisonous.
yeah, it's venomous,
Not poisonous.
not poisonous. So it's
You have to eat it for it to be poisonous.
absolutely, yeah.
It has a bite. It's
yeah,
venomous.
it has a bite. It's venomous. If it bites you, then it's probably best to get yourself checked out. You sort of go to A&E or whatever, just to make sure that you're okay. Definitely, if it bites your dog, obviously a dog is a lot smaller in volume than a human being. You definitely call your vet and yeah, get your dog checked out. Might be absolutely fine, but you never know. When I first started this survey, there were 4 grass snakes under here, but because of the conditions of change as we just described, it might have had an impact on their presence or absence. But
Okay, well, let's have a look.
no,
Nothing.
nobody home, unfortunately. No.
No. Okay, well, we were excited, but we shall keep searching.
Yeah.
Okay, so so grass snakes, adders.
Yeah.
So like I said, one is venomous, obviously the adder,
Yeah.
and you can tell that because of the zigzag pattern on its back.
Yeah, it's got a classic zigzag pattern, like a diamond-shaped pattern on the back, and it's usually either a cream backdrop with a brown diamond or a white backdrop with a black diamond. Now, the white backdrop with the black diamond tends to be males, but not always, and the cream and brown ones tend to be female. Yeah, basically. Whereas the grass snake is very, very different. The grass snake is an olive green, sort of dark olive green colour with the odd black dot across it. Yeah, so very, very different. Doesn't have the diamond pattern at all.
Okay, so if you see something that looks vaguely green, it's probably a grass snake.
Yeah.
Vaguely grey, brown, it's going to be an
Be
adder.
an adder. But the classic one for the adder is that diamond-shaped pattern. It sticks out like a thumb. Yeah, it's really, really, really clear. Right.
Moving on.
Moving on. Yeah, I suppose unlike Thursley is a big reserve. It's probably half the size bigger again than Horsell Common, but it's quite remote as well. It's far away from big towns, so the level of human disturbance is a lot lower. So from that point of view, obviously the wildlife in general feels freer to sort of move more freely through the habitat, if you like. So the chances of you seeing something there might be greater, I suppose. I don't know.
I suppose it's wetter, isn't it?
Yeah,
as well.
yeah.
And interestingly, I suppose the boardwalk there maybe keeps people out of the undergrowth. So
Yeah, it does.
And from the point of view of things like lizards, gives them a great place to bask.
Absolutely. Boardwalks are fantastic for common lizards, actually. Oh, that's another thing to mention, that we tend not to get the common lizards underneath the refugia. They tend to be in places like boardwalks and kind of along almost kind of scrubby edges. For example, we've created a few scrapes where you've got bare ground right next to kind of scrub, and along that scrubby edge often you'll get the common lizards basking in the sun along those edges.
And there's good numbers of common lizards, aren't there?
Yeah, they're fine. Yeah.
So yeah, 3 types of lizards we should talk about. So we said the common lizard, there's the sand lizard, and also the slow worm, which is not a snake.
It's not a snake, no. It's a lizard without legs. Yeah. And straight away we have a tree in our way. Amazing. Right.
We need to move it.
We might need to. I'm just wondering whether my colleague Jeremy has got a bow saw in the back of this truck.
A bit of maintenance as we go. Love it.
He might not have. It's jammed in there.
Yeah. It really is, isn't it?
It really is jammed in there. Okay. You never know. I might try 4-wheel drive on that and see what happens. I'll play around with it. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to give that a go. All right. Okay. Are you ready? Yeah.
Just as long as we don't. Oh.
There you go.
Perfecto.
Nice one.
Yeah. Great. The pitfalls of driving on the common, or trying to.
Okay, so Rupert, so a very different environment again this time.
Yeah, so
This is more woodland.
yeah, so we're in woodland. So the other important thing to mention is that the survey Yeah, we're trying to represent all the different habitats that we have here. So obviously we've got the heathland, the woodland as well. We've got the dry and wet lowland heath actually, and bits of grassland as well. And when you're designing a site-wide survey, you have to represent all of those habitats as well. So that's why we're here in the woodland at the moment. Although the chances of seeing a reptile here might be slightly less because they have less basking opportunities, but you never know. So, yeah.
Okay, so here we are. It is quite cool here, isn't it? So...
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I'm not expecting to find much here, but you never know. Okay, and no ants, thankfully, either. Good. Actually, just another thing to mention to you all really is maybe after we've finished this survey, check yourselves over for ticks. You know ticks? Because ticks love bracken. So, and the thing is, when they attach themselves to you, you don't feel it, and they're always in those nooks and crannies, those warm areas, you know, inside your elbows, whatever, under your arms. So it's a good idea to check for them when we're finished.
And so ticks will come in on the deer, would they? Or
yeah, they'll be on the deer. Yeah, they'll be on grazing animals, and they'll be on the vegetation. Yeah, they love alighting on bracken for some reason, and they're just waiting to attach themselves to a warm-blooded animal, us included, which is walking by.
This looks like one of your more off-road paths.
Yes, it is. Yeah. Just hope Jeremy's truck is up to it. That'll be fine. Right, there it goes.
Okay, so coming out into a sort of more
heathland,
more heathland, sort of dry heathland area.
Dry lowland heath, woodland edgy a bit. Yeah. So we're literally going to stop here. Thousands of years ago, when there was far fewer human beings on the planet, the fire, you know, fire is a natural thing. You could allow it to progress through the landscape because the landscape was big enough to be able to contain it. But here we can't do it anymore because we've got people everywhere, and you know, yeah, it's too dangerous. And also, if you have a fire on Horsell, you risk losing the whole common. You know, it's only 400 hectares. So whereas previously it was endless, wasn't it, the heathland? So yeah, it's important.
I suppose there have been fires on Chobham, like we said, Whitmoor and other commons recently.
Yeah.
Okay, so here we go. We have another one. Is everybody ready?
Up you go.
Some more ants.
Gosh. Yeah, they weren't there before. It's interesting. Yeah. Yeah, loads of them. Well, not too bad, but it's interesting. I do wonder, you know, about climate change and everything, and these long hot summers and everything. To what degree is it, you know, affecting what we're seeing, even on a simple survey like this, you know?
I mean, reptiles obviously like it quite warm. Would that impact them, do you think, or?
Well, you never know. It might be so warm they don't even need to go under the tins. That's just.
Okay, so they're there, but we just wouldn't see them necessarily.
Yeah, they're there because they're warm enough. The tins don't provide them with a significant increased amount of warmth or ability to regulate their blood temperature, other than just being out in the open or something. You just don't know, do you? Yeah.
Okay. Well, I suppose only time will tell, won't it?
Yeah.
Have you had any sort of incidents with adders in the past on the common?
Not really. No, haven't been told. I mean, we probably had one or two dog walkers who said that their dog has been bitten, but all was okay, and the dog was okay. But no other incidents really. No. I think basically, as you walk through the heather or walk across the common, the adders, and all the snakes, they can sense your vibration and they'll just move the other way. They don't want to disturb you at all or get involved with you at all, really. It's only on the very, very unlikely occasion that you might step on one or something, or take it completely by surprise, and then obviously it reacts from a self-defense point of view, giving you a nip or biting you. Yeah. But since I've been doing this job, no, really no incidents of, or at least serious incidents of adder bites or anything like that.
Okay, so we're out in a bit more sort of
sun.
open sort of heather area now. And the sun is directly on it, so
Yeah.
fingers crossed.
Whoa. No, not today, unfortunately. No ants, thankfully.
I suppose it's a constant battle just to keep it like this, to stop succession naturally forming, which I suppose is like the birch and keeping that under control.
Absolutely.
And the pine,
Yeah.
Scots pine.
So, for example, every year I get into areas like this with my volunteers on a Tuesday morning and get them to prescriptively remove the young silver birches, for example, which is basically a pioneer tree species. It's the first tree species that will try and invade an area that's not woodland at all. And if you allow it to do that, it will change the microclimate at ground level, so it makes it more favourable for other tree species to come in afterwards, for example, like the alders, hornbeams and oaks, and eventually you'll find yourself with a woodland. But if you leave that to continue too long, it becomes unmanageable.
Right.
You have to get contractors in to deal with it. But if you get in there with volunteers early enough, you can keep it in this kind of condition, so in good condition for the wildlife.
I suppose that's once again the importance of volunteers like Becky.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So once again, this one's a bit out of the way.
Yeah. You never know. Okay, go for it, Becky. Nope, nothing today, unfortunately.
So the Preservation Society's only got, is it just 2 full-time staff members?
Yeah, 2 full-time staff members, and then we've got 1 part-time staff member, George, who does 2 days a week. So effectively, sort of 2.5-ish people to look after 980 acres, roughly. Yeah. So it's
and everything else associated with it.
Yeah, it's quite a, well, I wouldn't say tricky, I'd say interesting and varied common to look after, because not only do we have the rare lowland heath, which is a priority habitat that we need to keep in good condition, but we also have 2 what you call SANGs. Have you heard of that term? Suitable Alternative Natural Green Space. So basically what that is, it's an area of land that is set aside and has been developed for dog walkers to use and people to use, so they can enjoy the countryside, but to take a percentage of the footfall that would otherwise go to places like Horsell Common. So the hidden agenda, if you like, is to look after and preserve the rare habitat by providing people with an alternative opportunity or alternative location where they can go and enjoy the countryside.
And these would be Heather Farm.
So here we've got, Heather Farm, the circular walk there, but then we've got the Bedser Trail and now the Wheatsheaf Common, the recently developed seasonally flooding wetland that we have at Wheatsheaf Common. And the other interesting thing is, amazingly, we have, I think it's about 860 neighbours. So people whose houses back onto our land.
Obviously, we should probably say that it's important to keep on the paths this time of year, of course, because of not only the snakes, but the ground nesting birds.
Absolutely, yeah.
And also, did I ask at the start, are you licensed to be able to do what you're doing for the survey?
So because I'm just doing a survey, I'm not actually handling reptiles.
Okay.
I don't actually need if you were handling reptiles, then yeah, you would need a license for that, yeah. But we've set out a survey and we're just checking them for presence of absence, whether they're there or not, and nothing more than that. So it's okay. Okay, if we head in this way a bit, here we go, in full sun. So we've seen grass snakes under this one before.
You have?
Yeah.
Okay. So this one's well out in the open, under the sun. So
bang in the middle of the dry open heath. You okay? No. Dearie me, it's like they knew we were coming today.
So what would you say the best aspect of your job is?
Interesting. I do love working with volunteers. Yeah. So I enjoy preparing the work parties, finding work for them to do, and working with them to get lots of important work done. Because everything that they do is like critical, really. Yeah. So yeah, provides me with a lot of satisfaction, that does. So that's one thing. The other thing is I do like working closely with Jeremy. Jeremy, before he worked here, he worked for the National Trust for about 13 years at Osterley House, if you know that, inside the M25. And so basically he was looking after the gardens, all the park garden areas of that, not the actual house itself. And he's got really, really good heathland knowledge as well. So the two of us kind of almost like feed off of one another in a way, but we kind of can support each other.
So kind of how do you decide on sort of what work needs to be done when? Is there a sort of a work plan for the year? Do you just...
Yeah. So the first big limitation that we have is that I can't do any work with the volunteers on the open heath during the ground nesting bird season. Right. It's the Wildlife and Countryside Act 1981 is the one that stipulates that you can't do anything to disturb wildlife when it's nesting or bringing up its young, anything like that. So obviously with the ground nesting birds, they're active here throughout the spring and summer. So this critical habitat maintenance work that I have to do in order to protect them, I can't do it when they're nesting. I can only do it during the autumn and winter. Yeah.
Okay, which is probably the worst time of year to do it anyway, isn't it?
Yeah, it's wet and everything. So during the autumn and winter is when I have to go out here with the volunteers, taking maximum opportunity when I can do to look after that habitat. Then this time of year, in the spring, my emphasis of work changes with the volunteers. I go into the woodland and I start removing invasive species, for example, like rhododendron, cherry laurel, Himalayan balsam next to sort of ditches and watercourses, stuff like that, all has to be removed, because if you were to leave that, well, particularly and also holly, actually. Holly's a good tree for wildlife because it provides berries in the late season for the birds and so on. So in the spring and summer, the emphasis with the volunteers changes. But also in the spring and summer, I have to get on a tractor and start mowing the bits of patches of amenity grassland that we have. So, for example, I don't know if you've heard of Black Patch, which is sort of within the Woking urban area to the west side of the town centre. Have to go to places like Horsell Moor, for example. We own that, and remove invasive species from there. Mow the grass in front of the cricketers' pub, all of that kind of stuff. And this time of year, that grass needs to be cut once every 2 or 3 weeks to keep it low, so people can use it for whatever they want to use it for, have picnics and so on and so. So there's that whole strand of work alongside
maintaining them, yeah,
and also the woodland. I was just saying, this particular refugia was disappeared the last time we came and did a survey. It was completely gone, so I've had to replace this one. So this is a new.
This is quite new, this one.
Yeah,
so.
It's a new one. Yeah.
Nothing?
No, nothing yet. I reckon. Give it a blast. You never know. Around it. I'll probably be able to wendle my way around it somehow, to be honest. Yeah. I've become adept at driving between trees. Another requirement of the job. Yeah. Yeah, it's down here. Methinks. Yeah, it is. I have to go down there. Right, brace yourself, guys. It's all right. It might push the wing mirrors back a bit as well, but it goes with the territory, I'm afraid. It doesn't sound too good, does it?
Doesn't sound ideal.
No. Well,
Have you got a...
yeah. Should we check this tin first?
Yeah.
Just think about that first, because that's gonna go anyway. Okay. No. No ants. Okay. Right. Have a look at this tyre. But
They're quite beefy tyres, aren't they?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Nice. Yeah. Okay.
ah,
And then I
right.
suppose that will just need winding back up, so we'd have that.
Yes. Yeah. Well done.
Alright, nice.
Great. So next thing is to jack the thing up
Yeah.
with the
So
jack.
this is what happens, unfortunately, when you're out and about in the wilds of Horsell
Oh
Common.
yeah, it's this one, isn't it?
That that Ross and
Of course it
Duncan
is.
are involved now in changing the tyre.
Is it low enough?
A bit low enough. you
Yeah,
need
I
to
was,
go up
I
a
was
bit.
thinking that.
Yeah,
Yeah, it does, doesn't it?
Look.
that should be good now, I reckon.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's go for it.
Yes, that's it, isn't it?
Just about. So down a bit, down a bit, up a bit. Well, that was exciting, and sadly we didn't see any snakes, but there's always next time. But we hope you enjoyed this episode, and if you did, let us know in the comments down below, and don't forget while you're there to like and subscribe, and we will see you again next month. Thanks for watching.